physical medium is no longer the coin of the realm.
Yeah.
Some people like them because it's more of a collector's item than anything else. It's like if I sign it, then it's like, okay, well that's cool. I own that now.
Yeah, I'll put that on the shelf.
So I can prove that I met this dude. Yeah, I can prove that I met this dude. That's nice.
Yeah.
So, what are we doing? Are we doing a show? Do you guys need to do an intro?
Yeah, we can. We usually just start with introducing ourselves. So I'll say my name, his name, and then if you want to say hi, I'm Mike, and then we can just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Rachel.
And I'm Matt.
And I'm Mike Kuciak.
Welcome to the Strange and Beautiful Book Club. That's our intro, so it's really easy. And then we can just talk.
Okay.
So, we watched From the Shadows today and Death Metal. So
wow. So you've got a double barrel load. Yeah, so you've got a double barrel load of my subconscious.
Right?
For which I apologize.
No, it was fun. Yeah, we watched From the Shadows first because I know you'd mentioned talking about that one. And I think that one's newer. It's from this year, correct?
It just came out, as in we did the red carpet like 2 weeks ago. And
okay.
It was in 5 cities. It was a 5-city, I should say, select theatrical run for a week. And then it's now exclusively on Vudu. It's VOD for the moment. And in about 30 days or so, I think it'll go to streaming. But, you know, that's still a thing to be seen. So in the meanwhile, not to discourage anybody from, renting and buying the film off of Vudu, because please do.
Yeah.
Please support independent.
Please give me a royalty check, please.
Yeah, well, it's mostly for our investors. It's like we want to make sure that they see return on investment. So it's like, at this stage, it's like, please rent it, please buy it, please watch the movie that we made, and support independent horror filmmaking, I guess. So.
Okay. How do you usually go about getting investors for a movie?
Oh boy, is that a long story and completely.
I was like,
it's completely. Every situation is unique, and in the case of death metal, that's self-financed for the most part. Although a little story, I sunk every penny that I had in the world into making death metal, and got into post, and I cut together a version of it, ran it through the whole soup to nuts of post-production, color, sound mixing, XYZ. I had a project that was releasable, technically, in terms of like QC, but I watched it again, and I watched it with my producing partners, and I showed it to some other people, and I'm like, no, it's not good. Because I very clearly rushed the edit. I was exhausted and semi-drunk, and I knocked it together in a hotel room in a La Quinta Inn in Macedonia, Ohio, because I was, at that stage I was running out of money, and I'm like, I have to get this movie out like right now. So I slapped through the entire thing. And here's the thing, man. It was like it was one of the toughest decisions of my life, because I realized that I could get this out and potentially see return and thereby have money. But I also realized that if I put out this version and my name is on that as a director, writer, XYZ, I'm going to strangle my career in the cradle. I'll never have another one again because it's like too obviously like super rushed through. So very tough decision, but I'm just like, I didn't know where the money was going to come from to redo it, but I was just like, I have to redo it. So for a couple of years, I was just beating the bushes and out in the wilderness, and in the meanwhile, cutting and recutting and recutting and recutting and recutting. So eventually it became, ironically enough, the movie that I set out to make, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And instead of like the rushed, half-assed, like, just get it out there, it was actually the movie that I kind of had in my head when I went into production. So eventually, one of my producing partners, Michael Alden, he connected me with a friend of his, Elzbieta Solka, who is the lead person of a production company called Periloop. And she had a son who had passed away, and he was in a death metal band. And she offered me a deal. She's like, I will finance post-production of your film and finish it. And in exchange, you put in my son's music and put in a little memorial at the end of it. So you see at the very end of the movie, this is dedicated in memory of Adam Bratcher. And it took some shoving around in terms of the soundtrack because I had all these songs, and now I'm still technically not done with the movie because I still need to redo the ending credits because I was in, again, not to sidetrack, but I did the work at a studio called Buttons in Manhattan, and I was there for 3 months, and I was like, after having gone through the experience of, the first go around with post-production, I was just like, I am not leaving until this thing is 100% done in every way, shape, and form, right? And that, I had to violate that own self-promise because we had another project that seemed like it was going to go like any second. And it was like, Mike, get your ass back to LA. We have to pack our bags. We're going to go to, the next one. And I'm like, okay, well, I promised I wouldn't leave until the movie was 100% done, and we're still working on the ending credits and some of the effects stuff, but I know, okay, I got to put my producer hat on and run out the door. So that's exactly what I did, and I got to LA, and, week goes by, another week goes by, another week goes by, and it turns out that part of our financing wasn't actually there, like we thought. So basically, I left the post-production of death metal on spurious claim, I guess, and for that reason, like believe me, I'm not. This isn't me throwing the post team under the bus. It's me saying that like I fucked up. I wasn't there to stand in the studio and point at the screen. So like there's like typos in the ending credits, and I wanted to take all the songs that are on from all the bands that are on the soundtrack and like give them like a nice montage that can showcase like all their songs, because in the actual movie I had to like kind of shove them off to like one little sequence so I can make room for Adam Bratcher's songs. So anyway, that's the story of post-production of death metal. This is the Hollywood glamour.
It sounds appropriately complicated. So,
yes.
What inspired you to make the movie in the first place?
I was looking for a project to direct, and I had a piece of money of my own. And I was looking for an opportunity to take that money and convert it into a horror movie that I was going to direct. And one of my producing partners, Ian Holt, he ran into a dude named Dan Gutschmidt, and he mentioned, he was just like, my partner Mike, he's looking to make a horror movie. Dan was like, well, I own a recording studio and I own a farm. Is that of interest? Can we make a movie out of those two? And see, here's the thing that a lot of people don't understand, especially about when it comes to independent filmmaking, is you start with the location, because otherwise locations are very expensive. But that's why like a lot of movies are like people running around in the woods. Or it's like, oh shit, we got this house, or we have this cool place. Let's shoot a movie there because we've got it. So it's like, so I flew out. And I took a look at the farm, I took a look at the recording studio, and I came back to LA and I knocked out the script, and then I went back and made the movie. So it was the intention of coming to LA in the first place years and years ago was to become a guy who makes horror movies as a writer-director. I hesitate to use the term auteur because I left that behind it. When I graduated film school, I had to turn that word in at the door. But, the entire time that I was in LA, working in the trenches, slugging it out, looking for opportunities, the end goal was making horror movies. So when I had the opportunity, I made a horror movie. And then here's the grand irony of my life is, the situation, the post-production of death metal took so long that my partners and I went ahead and made an entirely different movie during that process.
In the meantime,
being From the Shadows. So I went from 0 horror movies to 2 horror movies coming out almost back to back, almost right on top of each other. And it was funny that I was doing very similar steps of post-production with both. Like I was doing post-production sound mixing in New York, and then I came back to LA, and then 30 days later I was sitting in a studio with Cecilia Hall and Alan Howarth doing post-production, the exact same work in just different studio, different movie, same hat. So no complaints, don't get me wrong. But it is funny how the gods of Hollywood have a sense of humor sometimes. So
yeah.
There it is.
That's art.
Yeah. But in terms of specifically death metal, my 2 great loves in life are horror and death metal. So metal generally, but I really like death metal too. So and weirdly enough, the title was just sitting there. In terms of a feature, so I'm like, aha! I will be the guy who makes the death metal featured film horror movie. I am just the guy that
we talk about very generically named movies.
Yeah,
and it's surprising that death metal wasn't taken.
Yeah, there's a short out there, and every once in a while, people will be like, "Is this a short?" I'm like, "No, it's got nothing to do with the short." I watched the short; it was fine, but the short and takes the same direction as pretty much. See, here's the thing: is I did not set out to start my feature directing career, making a heavy metal horror movie. As much as I enjoy heavy metal horror movies as a subgenre of film, 100% of heavy metal horror movies are horror comedies. They always go in the direction of camp. They make fun of the music and the trappings and the da-da-da-da-da. And we have an element of that in death metal, but this one is also, this film is unique in the sub-genre in that I'm primarily trying to scare the audience. I have funny stuff. I have lighter moments. I do make fun of the trappings of metal and being in a band and XYZ, but that isn't the core goal. I don't, I never go in the direction of dude, you chopped off your drummer's head with a chainsaw, bro. What? It's the goal is the OG Evil Dead, is the bullseye, and same deal. The original Evil Dead, lighter moments, funny moments, but when it goes, it goes. It's scary. It's a scary movie. It's a gross, weird, scary, nightmarish movie. A grueling experience in terror. So that was the goal. Evil Dead plus a heavy frosting of Italian horror cinema. So if anybody's familiar with Argento, but primarily Fulci, they'll probably pick up on what I'm stealing. Even the setup is influenced by there's a old Italian horror movie called Paganini Horror. That was written and starring Daria Nicolodi, and but yeah, it's if you watch the movie and you're familiar with this type of film, I'm doing a punch zoom on maggots, it's that's straight out of the Fulci playbook. So it's just and I wear that influence on my sleeve. I'm yeah, fuck yeah, because I know almost no one else is drawing on these films, and I want to honor them and also lift from their ideas. But that's just where I'm coming from. So anyways, that's the really long version of why did you want to make this movie? Answer. So
That's good. Yeah.
yeah.
So things were taking a while with death metal, and
Yes.
you had time, so you just
Yes.
wrote another movie. Or did you already have the kind of concept written for From the Shadows?
Well, that's kind of its own alchemical thing, and the short version, as short as it can be, is I had actually written another project called Knife, and it really looked like Knife was going to happen, and COVID happened. And even with COVID, like we kept trying to push and wait it out and see, let's get, they're only saying 2 weeks, la la la, and but eventually it was taking long enough that financing was just like, let's just let this whole thing blow over. We'll circle back, and we were so close on that. I had the taste of the movie in my mouth. I'm just like, oh, motherfucker. Well, what? Out of frustration, it was like, well, what can we make? Let's make a movie anyways. But what movie can we make? So had the general, what happened was I saw Host. Have you guys ever seen Host?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So
Which one is
it's shot during COVID, and it's 5-6 people. They do a seance over a Zoom call, and it gets out of control, and the demons give them a hard time. And I thought, aha, they made that during COVID. We can make something like that during COVID. That's what we're going to do. And so the genesis of that was like, well, let's do a version of Host, or something like that. So Host was demons, Unfriended is ghosts. So I can't just copy it that directly, but it's like, what can I do? I'm like, what if there's a slasher version of it? And I started walking backward from that basic idea of a slasher version of Host. So it's like, all right, well, what's going on? I mean, the guy's popping up behind these kids with a knife and killing them. All right, well, why are they there? What are they talking about? Why don't they just get up and leave? How is he tracking them down one by one? And that's where we started like building out the mythology, and it like very swiftly went in this kind of Lovecraftian direction. And while I was still hashing out the idea, we connected with Fairleigh Dickinson, which is a liberal arts college in New Jersey. And they presented the idea of like, if you shoot here, if you use our students for like, some, crew and, XYZ, then you can shoot here. And which was great because they would, they're insurance and they've got a big wall around the place, very controllable shooting atmosphere. So we built it around that scenario of like, we shot in this giant house that's on the campus that was donated in like the 20s or whatever. I don't know the history, but it's like, so like each of the kids is like, actually, they're all in one house. We just dressed each of those rooms to look like a completely different location. And in terms of financing, we were able to draw up a lot more financing by attracting a couple of star names. So we got Keith David interested, but he was hesitant to jump on a project that was going to be only him as a name. Is what I gather. And so we reached out to Bruce Davison. We got him. He activated Keith. And so we had those two. And then we actually had another actress who was going to play Amora. And she left the day before we started shooting. Like we're talking about like stressful. We're talking about stressful work days. One was deciding I had to throw out death metal and start all over. Another one was I got off the plane in Newark and called my partners. I'm just like, hey, I'm here. I'm at the airport. Just letting you know I've gotten in safely. I was like, great. We'll see you when you get here. Oh, by the way, our lead actress left. She got on a plane and left. And so, what? so heroically, our director on that one, I directed and wrote death metal and edited and produced. Shadows, I'm screenwriter, and I'm a producer on it. But I didn't direct that one. It was directed by Mike Sargent. Produced by my partners Michael Alden and Holt, and a whole lot of EPs, including the heroic Saragoski, who filled in everywhere that needed to fill in. But long story short, Mike Sargent, he's like, okay, I can direct this amount of script without a lead actress. But we had basically 72 hours to find a replacement, or even a little bit less, because even if we found someone late in the day on day 3, they still needed time to get to set on day 4. So we had 2.5 days to replace our lead actress on this movie, and we were down to the wire. The ball was in the air when the buzzer went off, but we finally got Selena and Dews. And I think that all things happen for a reason, because not only did she show up and kill it and save our asses out of the fire at the last second, almost literally, but she's also vastly stronger, I think, than who we had before. So very stressful 3 days. Don't get me wrong, because if she hadn't showed up, we would have shut down. And who knows if we would have gotten the band back together? We don't know. For all we know, we'd be sitting around with just 3 days worth of footage sitting on a hard drive somewhere and a lot of tears in our eyes, But that's the fun of independent filmmaking. It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. So we shot out Shadows, and we did a lot of pickups for Keith and Bruce. And post-production was kind of its own long story, not quite as long as Death Metal, believe me, but it was still, kind of we had to hack it out of the wilderness, as you do with every feature film. So now in both cases, there's a happy ending to the story. We finished the movie, and now it's out, and some people like it. So
yeah, you enjoyed it.
Yeah. I'm glad. It is a little bit of it's very talky at the top of it. It's very exposition heavy, and we try to generate a sense of dread. But we of the pushback that we've gotten, like, not everyone likes that, but other people do. And in developing the material with Mike Sargent, I was like, hey man, this is really talky, first act, la la la. He's like, well, it is a review for one thing. And for another, it's like, let's ramp up the dread by degrees. Let's by the time things really kick off, let's have the audience like fully understanding what's going on, fully invested in the characters, ... and then we'll start killing them. Rather than the traditional model of like, here's jock guy. Oops, he's got an axe in the head. Mm-hmm. Oh, here's cheerleader girl. Guess what? She's got stabbed. Who could have seen that coming? It takes a little bit longer for this one to like really kick in, but when it does, by that time you're actually telling a story.
Right. Like when you care about the characters, it hits harder.
Right.
That's the thing. Is like I have a little bit of a pet theory that horror works best when you could remove the boogeyman, whatever, the ghost demon killer, whatever, and you still have a story to tell. And I think that that isn't 100% applicable, but I think it's applicable in a high enough of a percentage of films to bear some water, of my favorite movies in this genre or of all time, The Exorcist, The Shining, Candyman, is a really good one. If you removed the killer, removed the thing, you would still have characters who are in a drama, basically. Yeah. Story to tell. If Jason's mom never shows up in Friday the 13th Part 1, you still have a funny camp comedy. It's like there's still a movie to be had there. I think that, and you still have to deliver the goods. Don't get me wrong. The audience is dropping their dollar to get a horror movie, so you have to give them a horror movie. They're buying the cheeseburger because they want a cheeseburger, right? But it's if it's just mayhem, if it's just, if you're not telling a story with characters, then I think ultimately you're going to have something that's a little more hollow and it won't last. So anyway, and perhaps I'm just being a pretentious dude. I'm completely up my own ass. I don't know, but that's how I'm making. But that's my thoughts, and that's what I'm going with.
We call that blowing your monster load too early.
Sure. Yeah.
When you come out with the monster too soon, and I don't have time to connect to anybody, and now every time you bring out the monster, you have to ramp him up to make me more scared. Whereas if you just leave him, like you weave it in, and then all of a sudden, like, here's the monster, it's like, oh, okay, great. Now I'm scared because I've been waiting to see it for 45 minutes.
Yeah. The model that's always used is Jaws, because that was a happy accident that Bruce the shark didn't work, so we had Spielberg had to scare via inference, and but you do want that opening scene where you establish a threat. I guess you could call that scene the statement of intention. Like, the movie audience sits down to watch a movie, you hit them with something, you kill somebody, you do something, and then you let them know. And ironically enough, I didn't write a statement of intention scene in the earlier drafts of Shadows. Mike and Ian, I think, wrote that opening scene where Ian's walking along and he's like drunk guy and gets hassled by the creature. Like I showed up to set there and I'm like, ooh, who wrote this scene? it's like Cooch, we had to start off with a scare. Like, all right, yeah, you're not wrong, but here we go. But anyways, there it is.
All right. What is your favorite horror movie?
If you
had
it's
to
always
pick one.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a split decision between Shining and Exorcist, depending on my mood. Those two are. It's like deciding between Master of Puppets and Rain and Blood in terms of like what's it. They're both 10s. It's like what are you in the mood for right now? It's I don't know, but I have favorites in like every subgenre and subgenre. In terms of like slasher, obviously, Texas Chainsaw Massacre for me is kind of the best, followed very, very closely by Halloween and Candyman, and then behind that, like maybe Friday the 13th Part 4 or 6. Again, depending on my 2, 4, or 6, depending on my mood. And we could go that demon movies, ghost movies. Like I'll give you my top 10 in every category. Like my favorite vampire movie, I would have to say is Fright Night, the original Fright Night.
Original Fright Night.
Yeah, followed very closely by like Coppola's Dracula and just all the other good ones. But I have a special place in my heart for Fright Night. I could do zombie movies, werewolf movies, la 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 la. So they're all good. A lot of good movies.
What's your favorite thing about horror? Like, why horror? Just
an excellent question. I've actually had versions of this conversation not long in the past, and ultimately, horror and comedy are the two most communal genres. I think they're the ones in which you're really going into a dark room filled with people who you don't know, and you're all going to have one big reaction, and there's something very communal and very human and almost tribal in that sense, whether it's a big laugh or a big scare. And I think that I run in, there is a cathartic element to it. I hang around with a lot of horror people in horror situations, horror nerds like myself, and I go to a lot of metal shows, and there's a lot of crossover between those two groups. And amongst those two groups, you'll find like the nicest, most chill people on the face of the earth. And you'd be like, "Wow, how can that be?" If you watch these horrible movies and listen to this ferocious music, and it's like, oh, because there is a cathartic element to it. And there's a community to it. Not everyone in the world loves death metal, but when you walk into a death metal show, you're like, oh, I'm immediately in a room with 300 of my closest friends because they're the only other 300 psychopaths that like this kind of music. And there is an element of that with horror as well. It's ultimately also by exploring darker themes and and giving the audience a little taste of death, I think that's life affirming in a weird way. One time someone asked me why I liked why people like horror movies. I told them for roughly the same reason that people like roller coasters. We give a little taste of safe death, if that makes sense. Under ordinary circumstances, definitely. And there is, in a way, it is the ultimate expression of the power of cinema, because the audience knows they're watching a movie. They know they're looking at actors, that the blood is fake, that the things that they're looking at are not real, do not happen. They're perhaps sitting around with their friends and loved ones, and you're still getting them to be scared, to be frightened. And there's, that's extraordinary to me. It's almost like a mind control experiment, that we can affect a huge emotional response, perhaps the strongest emotional response that any of us have as human beings, in a completely antithetical place. And these films, for that reason, have an almost undying, ironically enough, power to them. For example, I live in Hollywood, like literally Hollywood, California. And there's the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, and they show horror movies when it's nice, which is most of the year because it's California. But they used to show, nothing but horror movies. Now they show mostly normal movies, and but around Halloween they'll still show horror movies. And not long ago I saw The Thing, and there's 40 some odd years old, this movie, and was, by the way, the critics hated it. Flop movie, critics hated it. 40 years later, on paper, this should be the most forgotten movie ever, right? But it was sold out show. And when things pop off, the crowd goes nuts. There's no death of the theatrical experience. There's no death of horror as a genre. People still love these movies, and there's a reason for that. And so, so anyways, and again, that's me flying straight up my own anus on a pretentious monologue.
I mean, that's why you like it. That's fine.
I do. Yeah, exactly. It's like, ultimately, like, this is just, don't get me wrong, like, I have a lot of other projects that are action oriented. I was actually just on a call today about, we're putting together a casting target list for an action project that I've written. And here's the thing, is like, I've been trying to get these action movies made for like years and years. And when they do, I mean, great, that's going to be awesome. But like, in the meanwhile, what are the movies that I can actually get made in the real world? And that's independent horror movies. So it's just like, between movie and no movie wins every time. So it's like, yeah. So the idea being like, we'll keep making these horror movies, while at the same time pursuing, I guess, budgetarily, like the bigger ring of, the action projects. But, it's nothing against, the rest of the genre, but, horror is where I find my particular love.
There. Do you have any upcoming projects you want to talk about?
Yeah, well, I mean, nothing I can really go into detail about, because there is a project that we're going to make in Canada, and my partners and I have been having the conversation of like, well, we've got Shadows out, what comes next? So like, obviously that one, we're like, I think after we take a bit of a breath, because Shadows just came out. Yeah. I think all of us, after all of us take like a bit of a breath, then we'll start like seriously leaning into like, okay, which is the next one where we're going to try to make. And in the meanwhile, I'm on page 55 of a contained horror project, just based on an idea and a location, potentially. I was just on a call today about an action project. And I have I have 6 or 7 other projects that are kind of like in swirling around in the orbit. So it's like, I wish I could say, well, we're coming straight off these 2 movies and we're going directly into XYZ, but it's like not quite there. We have some projects that are closer in orbit, others that are farther out. But yeah, it's like, because I think because you're asking this question like a week after Shadows came out, it's like, well,
you're still in recovery.
We just finished the marathon. Let me know what the next city is going to be in. We're going to run the next marathon in. But obviously, like, I'd love to make Death Metal 2. Like, I'm already I've already got like 30 pages of ideas and notes and stuff together for that. I generally have, but I still have to like pay people on Death Metal 1 and fix the credits and stuff like that. That movie is still like not 100% done. So it's like, all right, well, let's really seal the lid on Death Metal before you really start talking about Death Metal 2. But and not to jinx it, but generally speaking, I think it would be cool to make something in Florida because that's where Death Metal was born as a genre. So it would be cool to like see if we could just dig into that history of the subgenre and just everything else, and just get all sweaty and weird and dump fake blood on people. It's like
the fun stuff.
The fun stuff.
Yeah. Anyways,
if people want to keep up with you, where's the best place to follow you?
Well, Death Metal has a site, deathmetalhorrormovie.com. And that's where there's a direct link to the movie on Tubi. And I don't really post like updates there, but I am shilling that site because it's from there that I'm selling signed copies of the Blu-ray and also Abba Sinister t-shirts. And because, again, I put every penny that I've got in the world into these movies, I am like, please go buy stuff and support independent horror
all the
movies
merchandise.
And it's like, because with Death Metal, you guys have seen the movie, so you know that there's a scene at the merch table, and I weirdly enough, it was actually it made more sense to run off like a lot of 1,000, and it's been a couple of years, I don't remember exactly why, but it's just like, the more of them you make, the cheaper they are per unit. So like, I'm just let's just make 1,000. I figured that I gave away like a ton of them, but I still have like 500 see right there. I have 500 Abba Sinister t-shirts, and like they're technically because I made them for the movie, and one of them is on screen. They're technically movie props, but I'm trying to sell these off. Hopefully to raise some money that I need to fix the credits and get the bands right. So yeah, please go to deathmetalhorrormovie.com. And I hate to be this kind of shill guy, but just like I motherfucker, I need I need to sell this shit. So it's like, I need to sell this stuff so I can finish Death Metal, so I can start raising money for Death Metal 2. So there's also From the Shadows Film. And that one is run by Sarah, so it's far more like updatey, because she's just kind of on the ball in terms of stuff like that. So, From the Shadows Film, I personally on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, Mike Kuciak, I think is my handle on that one. On Instagram, I'm Blast Furnace Media, which is my physical production company. There are a couple other places. It's either Mike Kuciak or Michael Kuciak, and or Blast Furnace Media, like one of those two. If you search right, I'm a very Googleable guy these days. So for good or for bad.
So like distribution wise, other than like hard copies, where would this movie end up? Okay, so Death Metal is currently streaming for free on Tubi, although there are commercials. Right. And although, if you wait through they make you watch a toothpaste commercial before you watch the movie, and that's why it's free. When you do that, it puts $1 in the pocket. So please watch the toothpaste commercial, because again, we have to finish this movie. Yeah. Money. Watch. Don't turn up your nose at the toothpaste commercial. It's for the greater good of independent horror filmmaking and me. And I've actually just been informed by my distributor, Bayview, that it's been picked up for Screambox. So we will soon be up on Screambox.
When exactly is completely up to Screenbox. But if you have a subscription to Screenbox and you don't want to watch the toothpaste commercial, then hold your horses. It's going to be up pretty soon. And for Shadows, that one is currently exclusively on Vudu, VUDU.com. Okay. And right now it's VOD. And then, there's perhaps a streaming situation after that. But for right now, we're focusing on the VOD. It's just like, rent it, buy it. Rent it, buy it, please. Rent it, buy it. We need to see ROI for our investors. So, anyway, if we're support independent horror films, because this is how they're made.
Absolutely.
And in the year of our Lord 2023, this is how the sausage is made.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, a lot of the older models of financing have completely vanished. So you're really like everybody in the industry at every level is kind of refiguring out how this whole movie thing works. So it's not just us; it's the studios, it's everybody. So, anyways. So I'm chilling, man. Go to deathmetalhorrormovie.com, Tubi, Screenbox, From the Shadows Film, Vudu. Go watch it. Go buy stuff. Watch stuff. Buy stuff.
Yeah, we enjoyed it.
I promise it's scary. It's gory. There's death metal and death metal. If you like death metal, there is death metal in the movie Death Metal. Thanks to my friends and my good friends, I should say. I should carve this out. My good friends in Incantation, because they actually just released an album, which is brutal as fuck. If you are down with death metal, go check out Incantation's new album. It is ferocious. The mighty Incantation are on stage playing their song Rites of the Locust under the credits of death metal. So, if you watch 5 minutes of the movie, watch those 5 minutes. So, anyways, yeah, that's what I got going on.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mike. It was really fun talking to you.
Oh, you froze. You're frozen.
Oh, we'll be back. Are we back?
Yes, now you are. Good.
Okay. I said, it was really fun talking to you. Thank you, Mike, for coming on.
Very sincere pleasure for having me on. I'm glad that you watched the movies. I'm glad that you enjoyed them. And we've got more coming up. And again, it's like, every opportunity that I have to get the word out. Watch it, please. Watch it, yeah. watch it.
No, we're happy to. Yeah,
glad to help.
Yeah, we try to do not big movies. Oh,
yeah, especially with all the strikes lately.
Well, that's the thing is, like, I'm not to beat up on, say, Conjuring movies and whatnot. They don't need, they don't need our help. Yeah, it's like they have an entire marketing department, and it's their whole job to, get, Burger King cups and, commercials during the Super Bowl and like all that good stuff. It's just like, little movies like mine. It's like, it's straight up like, just Instagram. Like, hey, I made a movie. Do you want to watch it?
Oh, we know.
Yeah, but please watch it. Do you want to watch it? Here, watch it for free. Here's the link. But again, like, in all honesty and sincerity, my very sincere gratitude. Thank you for having me on. And as I make more movies, I'll give you guys a shout and let you know when they're done and watchable. So
yeah,
all right, cool. Look forward to it.
All right, take it easy, guys.
Nice. Thanks. Bye.